Hello and welcome to the New York Financial Writers Association's presentation on social media and Twitter and the evolution of news dissemination. My name is Steve Gelsey. I'm senior reporter at MarketWatch, and I'm the host of this webinar. So we're joined today by four journalists who are active in social media as our panelists. So thanks to our panel. I'm going to just say their names really quickly, and then we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves. We've got Kat Borgerding. She's senior editor, social and engagement at MarketWatch. We've got Zoe Zathmary, deputy digital managing editor at Barron's. Catherine Lurie, editor in charge social media at Reuters, and Ian Donis, political reporter for the Public Radio Rhode Island's NPR member station. So thank you everybody for joining us. So social media is the news. The news is social media. I don't know. Let's talk about this. Kat, why don't we start with you? Tell us about what you do and how does social media kind of influence the news, you think?
So at MarketWatch, we're present on pretty much every social media platform, but kind of at the start of the year, we shifted our priorities a little bit. So we are more focused on like the visual storytelling platforms like TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, things like that right now. But of course, still very present on every major platform. And we use it, of course, to promote the great work in MarketWatch, to communicate with our audience directly, and to source news ideas. And just get in the conversation with what's going on with personal finance and retirement issues and markets and companies and things like that. So we kind of have a lot of uses for social.
Yeah, definitely. And Zoe, you're with Barron's. It's part of the same corporate umbrella, but a different publication. So you probably do things a little bit differently or have a slightly different focus.
Absolutely. We do a lot of similar things that Kat's describing, but we have used, Twitter in and of itself for trending news items, especially if there's any story about Elon Musk making announcements about his Twitter deal going through, not going through, whatnot. Those are just instant articles for us. Like a lot of financial publications, we've also covered all things Wall Street bets in the last 2.5 years. And we've also paid more attention to Reddit generally, even going into more of our retirement coverage. So that's been helpful to see people posts on there, which have also been useful for content to talk to people.
Yeah, I haven't heard Reddit that much, but that's interesting. I know that Reddit is where you go, I guess, for like meme stocks, people talking about the meme stocks.
Absolutely, yes. And then we have a lot of readers who are interested in FIRE content, so financially independent, retiring early. So people, leaving their jobs at like 40 or even like 38, that kind of thing. Everyone wants to do the exact same idea.
Yeah, I don't know, Kat and Zoe, see if you agree with me on this about the readership. So the people who read MarketWatch probably work for the people that read Barron's. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes anyway. So Catherine, give us a rundown of Reuters and social media. That's Reuters is a well-known news service, great for covering all kinds of things all over the world, especially the business coverage. So I'm sure social media weighs into a lot of that stuff.
Definitely. We're on all the major platforms except for Snapchat right now. And honestly, the only reason why we are not on Snapchat is because we just don't have the resources to dedicate there. But as Kat and Zoe said, that we're on all the platforms, but we are also focusing more on the visual storytelling, the TikTok, we just became active on in January. We held out for a very long time because there was a lot of nervousness around the app, around it being China owned, and we had a lot of discussions with our lawyers before we ventured onto the platform. We tiptoed. But it's kind of a learning process. Everything that we do is it's kind of trial and error at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do, we use social for ideas. We use social to disseminate all of our content across subject areas. Of course, business is a big one, but everything, we have everything. So
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Ian, give us an intro here. I've known you a couple of years too.
Yeah, Steve and I go way back. Yeah, I'm the political reporter for Rhode Island's NPR member station, the Public's Radio. And radio is our main platform. We have a website, but I'm a very heavy user of Twitter. I guess I have an unhealthy Twitter addiction. I got on Twitter in 2009 when a friend mentioned it to me. At first, I didn't really see a lot of value in it. I mean, what are you going to say? I just had a ham sandwich for lunch or something like that. But it's become a really good way for getting my journalism out to the world. And I've built up a substantial following over time, almost 19,000 followers. I'm followed by reporters at the Post and the Times and the Wall Street Journal who want to know what's going on in Rhode Island. And there's a pretty active conversation on Rhode Island Twitter every day. And part of what I don't have a lot of love for what's happened with Elon Musk. He destroyed my favorite Twitter app, Tweetbot, which made it a lot easier to follow Twitter in a sensible way and kind of pick up where you left off. And now it's just crazier than ever. It's much more random and it's hard to keep up. But yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, it's too big to fail. I have so much invested in it that I can't walk away, even if I dislike some of what Musk is doing with it. And there is an active conversation on Rhode Island stuff each day. And it can be a good place for sharing both serious in-depth reporting and stuff that's a little bit on the lighter side. National media picked up a story out of Rhode Island recently about how two Rhode Island state officials went to Philadelphia and acted kind of rudely. That was in the Washington Post today and in the Philadelphia Inquirer earlier this week. So that kind of thing blows up on Twitter. But, for me, it's a good way of being part of the conversation.
I mean, for me, I'm a reporter and I get a lot of leads from Twitter. So yeah, I mean, the too big to fail thing is kind of interesting. I've heard that kind of rumblings about it. It was like, right. I mean, there was like a lot of, well, why don't can we have, I don't know, Twitter is like a big focus, I think, in some ways for journalists. So we want to go around and just talk about Twitter and maybe what kind of impact all this, Twitter sort of disruption has had. Of course, if anybody's listening and they don't know the major milestones, Elon Musk, the eccentric billionaire, richest man in the world, bought Twitter. And it went through, and then he didn't want to buy it, and then he did buy it, and then he bought it, and he said he wasn't going to lay people off, and he laid off like half the people, or more than half the people, right?
More than half the people.
Yeah, and so so a lot of people decided not to use Twitter anymore, but on the other hand, a lot of journalists still like Twitter. So is that kind of like the main points? And Kat, what's your take on the whole Twitter situation? It's a lot of people talk about it all the time, and this kind of journalists, so it's something to kind of go around about, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so at Markham Watch, we kind of just at the start of the year, kind of around this time when Elon was taking over Twitter, we were just sort of taking stock of everything that we were doing on social and trying to just, better allocate our resources. And we felt like even though Twitter is definitely by far our largest audience, we kind of felt like maybe we could put it a little bit on pause and actually do a little bit less on Twitter. So we started to automate our tweets going out there for all of our stories. They'll just, get auto tweeted there. And so we decided to try that out and really just use Twitter for engagement. And that kind of looks like for us, basically sending out tweets that, we know our audience on Twitter are really interested in things like market movements, stocks that we know they love, and as well as like characters we know they love, like Elon Musk. And so we've kind of just been going along with that plan for a few months now, and it really has been good for us. Like we still get really good engagement on the things that we put out that are, we're intentionally trying to make them a little bit more shareable and start conversations. And it really hasn't impacted our traffic too much in terms of just like auto tweeting our stories there. So it kind of like all kind of happened at once that we were like, let's actually kind of walk back a little bit and see how things play out on Twitter with the new leadership and the new kind of just changes and things that have been coming and going on the platform. And
They do
yeah,
have a new CEO. They just named a new CEO last week, right? So
yeah, a new I'm not exactly, no, it's not CEO. He's still, I think, CEO, but it's Linda
okay.
Yaccarino from NBC, I believe, who's coming in to like help with ads and things like that and like the business side.
Okay.
Yeah. So we haven't seen, we really haven't seen an impact on like our engagement, our traffic on Twitter, but we are just kind of like, we've just kind of like walked it back a little bit and kind of see, we wanted to wait and see how things were going to play out on the platform.
Yeah. Catherine, what do you think, this period of time is going to be when we look back on it on Twitter, with Twitter, you think it's going to be, I don't know, you think Twitter's going to still be too big to fail in the future, or where do you think things are at, or, where they're headed?
Well, I think we are not the only publisher who is stepping back a little bit from Twitter. We already had all of our stories automated because we just the size of our file is extreme. So there's no way a small team could do it without automation. But we do create specific social strategies around our bigger set pieces and our investigations. And we use Twitter mostly to still put those out because we have, on our main handle, we have almost 26 million followers, and we just don't have that reach anywhere else. And so I think while it still is too big to fail, we also have taken a step back, and we're kind of doubling down our efforts on LinkedIn and Reddit. And Reddit is having big drama this week. I'm sure everyone saw.
No, I didn't hear about that. What was going on?
Oh, they have also decided to start charging for their API. And so third-party apps that depend on that data are now being shut down. And the difference here is that Reddit is run by volunteer moderators who can shut down the subreddits if they want to in protest, and hundreds have gone dark in the last and for 48 hours. So, and some longer in protest of this, because apparently they are charging a crazy amount for the API. I don't know exact numbers, but yeah, so it's big drama this week with.
Okay. Well, thanks for filling us in on that. There's always something,
definitely. Right? But sorry.
I just thanks for filling us in. There's always something going on in the landscape, it seems,
Totally. But that aside, Reddit has been an incredibly useful platform for us. We do Reddit AMAs, which, if you're not familiar, they're ask me anythings, which basically a reporter will take an hour out of his or her day and answer questions about a big investigation they just did. Or, if we're at the Olympics and the sports subreddit is willing to host, a conversation for an hour, those do super well. And it really, it benefits both the audience and the reporter. I can stop talking now and
it's so
visit LinkedIn later.
Yeah, it's so sophisticated, all the things you guys do. I just go out and talk to people and write stories. I mean, gosh. Zoe, give us your view on Twitter. Broad question, broad topic, but go ahead.
Sure, I think it's kind of a necessary evil, question mark.
Yeah.
But Theron's follower count is far smaller than what you just referenced, Catherine. I think ours is like 280,000. We used Twitter pre-Musk. We used it for what Twitter referred to as moments. So basically, when you package a bunch of tweets together and multimedia content, so almost like a narrative story. So before he took over, we used that to highlight some of our cover stories and some of our investigative features. What was tough was that those moments were, I guess, promoted and put together on the site by an editorial team. If I'm not mistaken, the Moments team was one of the first groups to be laid off by Elon Musk once he, you know, took ownership of the place. So instead, we already had most of our stories automated. We've kind of kept going with that, and we only really manually tweet at this point for like breaking news and to promote some of our video series. Andy, our editor at large, is doing more interviews with CEOs. We've tried to cross promote there, but I don't think it's really hurt us. I mean, even the last couple of months, even for a much smaller publication, our follower count is up by about 35,000, which surprised even me. So it seems to be working so far before I jinx myself.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing, is that the landscape has changed a lot too, because I know at MarketWatch it was all about, you know, advertising, display advertising, and getting more eyeballs to see the display advertising. Now it's all about subscriptions and following the Netflix model almost, you know, paying for content. So, you know, using social media for those purposes is different, slightly different focus, I guess. Ian, we didn't get to you on your Twitter, on your take on Twitter. And having 20,000 followers, and you have a slight view on the NPR thing. You're not an NPR station, but you're part of a NPR member station. There's a distinction there. So just, yeah, can you run through that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, you ask where social media is going, and that's really hard to say. I mean, we all remember what happened to MySpace, and we see how Facebook has laid off a lot of people, and they're trying to pivot to AI. So, but you know, as what I meant as far as Twitter being, I can't quit Twitter. I'm like, I remember the line in Brokeback Mountain, I can't quit you. That's the way I feel about Twitter. Because when Musk took over and there were like some outages here or there, like me and my peers and I started looking around at like Post and Mastodon and some of these alternative platforms, but none of them really have the same amount of eyeballs as Twitter. And even with some of the very dubious people who've been allowed back on under Musk, there's still an upside to Twitter for legitimate news organizations and reporters to get their stuff out. So that's why I still embrace it. I'm kind of unusual as far as my shop. I mean, I have colleagues who are not on social at all. They just, you know, do their reporting and put it out into the world. I have some colleagues who do a little, you know, they'll do like 3 tweets a week. And I'm like, why bother? You know, I think you have to be more prolific than that if you're going to make any kind of impression. But I still, you know, I still enjoy Twitter. And it's funny. I recognize, like, sometimes if someone puts up a cute dog picture, that's going to get a lot more impressions than my in-depth take on Rhode Island's state budget. But that's like the nature of the medium. You know, you got to have your meat and your vegetables, but that's okay.
Okay, well, I hope you had some dinner there, Ian.
I did.
Okay, so all right, so alternatives to Twitter. Let's go around there. I mean, Ian, you mentioned a few of them. Kat, Catherine, and Zoe. You all kind of mentioned Reddit and some and other ones, but let's talk about that a little bit. I guess LinkedIn. I used to get some news leads from LinkedIn, especially if somebody got changed jobs. But now people are more and more, I guess, posting their stories on that, which I have to do more often too. So, Kat, Kat, we're doing more. Should I be posting more of my stories on LinkedIn?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm not exactly sure how common this is, but I'm pretty sure LinkedIn does work with a lot of news organizations, but we do work with them, and we send them things for their editorial team to feature throughout the day, which definitely does help. And reporters who can get featured that way do see a lot more engagement on their posts. But yes, LinkedIn is one of those places that we have tried to explore. It definitely is nowhere near the traffic driver that Twitter and Facebook have the potential to be. So, but just in general, LinkedIn is definitely like, I don't know, just much calmer sort of place, and a place where, you know, people are maybe, they're still used to the activity of like clicking on links and getting information. But I think just in general, LinkedIn is they do kind of want to keep you on their platform a little bit. So thus the featuring and the trending conversations that they curate on the platform. They really kind of want you to stay and engage on the platform, which is fine. And we do love that as well. But yeah, it hasn't netted us kind of the traffic that maybe we were hoping for when we switched over to doing more there earlier this year. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think LinkedIn is a great platform for story ideas, for sourcing. I've worked with them for many years on like their LinkedIn for Journalists webinars that they do. They're always super helpful. So yeah, I mean, I think it's always a great platform for a reporter or an editor to explore. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that I muted myself. Catherine, so talk about so any alternatives to Twitter. You already kind of mentioned a couple of other ones, but are you looking at LinkedIn as well? And where where are the other places we can find Reuters? I guess Reddit you said as well.
We're definitely looking at LinkedIn and doubling down. It's hard to say doubling when we didn't really do that much to begin with, but we are putting more effort toward LinkedIn. We do pitch them morning stories, afternoon stories to try to get featured in their news cycle, and we're also doing a beta test with them right now where we're doing an 8-week audio weekly event series.
Oh, cool.
This is one of the things that LinkedIn is trying to get their hands in some audio stuff, and it's not perfect. There's we're definitely trying to work out some kinks, and but I think we've done this week will be our 6th week of doing just kind of trending topics and conversations around those topics. Last week we did a conversation about Binance. We're trying to pull one together about the Trump indictment this week. And some of them have had very good engagement for the platform. When we do like a Twitter space or something, we'll have hundreds, sometimes thousands of people listening at once. And we haven't really broken the 100 listener mark yet, but also, we have a very limited following on LinkedIn. It's just not, the numbers are not there, which is again why we can't quit Twitter. But one other note about Reddit, I think, and Zoe, when you mentioned Moments, this reminded me, the head of North America content partnerships at Twitter is now the head of content partnerships at Reddit.
Oh.
So, and she has a lot of ideas, and I think she will be implementing some stuff like maybe something akin to Moments on Reddit. So I think there are, and I know that they have a new publisher profile or something coming this fall. So things are definitely happening there. And LinkedIn, and TikTok is just a mystery to me, but we're trying.
So. Is Google News considered social media, or that's just another news? That's a news aggregator. It's a little bit different, I guess.
It's a little bit different. We also have partnerships with places like Google where we're doing like panels. I don't know if you guys have heard of those, but they're regional, like we do Canada panels and UK panels, and they're kind of like bite-sized chunks of news visible in those regions. So what we're doing some partnerships like that too.
Right. Okay. Zoe, what are your leading kind of like as Twitter? You said everybody's kind of dialed back a little bit on Twitter. More automated and less freshly written tweets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So where's your focus been shifting to a little bit more, you think?
We have moved much further into TikTok and also Instagram. Instagram for us is more of a brand awareness engagement thing than anything else. But before, several years ago, our Instagram was mainly just a way for us to feature illustrations from our print magazine. It was a very old-fashioned way of doing it, and a lot of the art didn't make sense. It didn't have lines that clearly made connections between what this was supposed to be. Like, what is this random picture of this falling paint? Why does it connect to this company? So we've stopped a lot of that. We've started doing a lot more slideshows and a lot of infographics we're putting in there. I think we put up one today about comparing the economy under Trump versus the economy under Biden, which was adapted from a news story that one of our reporters wrote. So we've pushed more into there. We've also done more Instagram stories in a way that we were kind of only really doing casually before. TikTok obviously can be very chaotic. I guess you could argue it's chaotic good if you're on like the Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart. But because we're a news organization, I would like to think ours are a bit more polished. So we usually put about maybe 2 or 3 a week. So it's not breaking per se, but more like a buzzy topic or a way to push the story forward like the next day if we can't like get something out in the next 2 hours. If that makes sense.
Right. Ian, have you been looking at anything else other than Twitter as you try to quit Twitter unsuccessfully?
I mean, it's hard not to pay some attention to TikTok, given how it has gained the mind share particularly among the youngest generation. And I mean, Steve and I went to college together, and MTV was kind of coming on strong when we're in college, and music videos were a way of communicating then. And now, those ran a couple of minutes, and now, it's down to the much shorter length of a TikTok video. I'm not sure what that says about the attention span of the American mind, but I've been a little bit wary about joining TikTok myself just because of the Chinese ownership thing. I've never pulled the trigger on Instagram, although I think that would be a good outlet for me. My radio station has an Instagram, and I like taking photos, and I use photos a lot in my Twitter, so it would seem like a natural match. But I keep TweetDeck open on my work computer when I'm at my desk. And for people who are not familiar with TweetDeck, it's like 5 columns of tweets, and I have them organized into my Rhode Island media list, out of town media or whatever. My wife comes by and looks at it, and she just gets a headache looking at it. And I look at that all day. But as Steve said earlier, I mean, it is a really useful resource for finding out about news when it's breaking. I mean, I feel like I feel like Twitter enables me to have a really broad view of local, national, international news. And, the downside is you have to spend a little time minding it if you want to stay up on that. But yeah, I mean, at some point I might pull the trigger on Instagram.
Ian, if you want to join Instagram, you can post photos of your tweets. That's very big on Instagram. So it's like double your money for not much effort.
Great idea. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a really important part of the presentation. Let's say, all right, let's say you're a journalist, right? And you want to get a little bit more oomph in your stories. Can you folks give anybody any advice on how they could use social media? Let's say somebody doesn't even have a Twitter handle yet or something, just like what are the ABCs, to getting started? And it depends, I guess, what demo you're from, because if you're just getting started and you're a young demographic, you're just going to be trying to do everything on your phone, I guess. But if you're like an older demographic, you're going to be trying to do things on your PC. So it's, I don't know, just any advice. Who wants to take that one first? Anybody want to take that question first? Ian, you're going to start with that? Okay. Ian,
yeah, it's kind of basic, but I mean, I think you need to write good headlines. You have to draw your audience in through headlines. That's where how a lot of people judge whether they're going to read something or not. And, there is an art to writing a good headline that's going to draw people in. But I think some people don't put effort into that, and that, that's an important thing to do.
And once you have the headline, then what you got to do? Because you have your publication, and then I guess you paste a link into different postings or something, I guess, like with Twitter. Kat, you want to elaborate at all, or give anybody the ABCs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the very first thing is definitely do not just tweet or Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform of choice, your headline or like something that's already on the story. You definitely want to take the time to explain what your story is about, what you're writing about, whatever it is that you're trying to say. Explain it in a way like, I mean, this is probably a very old hat for a lot of people, but explain it like, you would tell a friend or your mom or, somebody in your life who doesn't know anything about what you're writing about or what your video is about, whatever it is. And then, I mean, I also think that, giving a little bit of your insight, maybe something that, you didn't necessarily put in the story, but it's still like some interesting context, something that you as the reporter can contribute to the platform, to the conversation around your story. I think all of that is like super, super important for, just, building some trust, getting people interested in whatever it is, and just standing out from everything else. So
would you recommend like starting on Twitter or starting on someplace else or I don't know, I guess maybe Twitter still seems to be the place where most journalists are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, if you kind of look at the scope of all the social media platforms, like Twitter really is a very small one, just in terms of its global audience. It is certainly not as big as Facebook and definitely not as big as TikTok. So, but it is where all the journalists are, and still a lot of the powerful people in the world are on Twitter. So I think it's still, like we've been saying, a very important platform. But I do think that TikTok is one of those places where we will all be soon if it lasts in the US. And but I think that just the audience there is massive. There's so much disinformation and bad information on that platform. So putting out really valuable and accurate and substantial information there is very important. And it's a place where that stuff can really be rewarded. And you can, build an audience there, build rapport. It's also a great place to be interacting with people, like Twitter also is. So but of course it's a visual medium. Not everyone's comfortable on camera. So, I mean, I still think Twitter really is important for a reporter for getting their stories out. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I know covering, like private equity business, LinkedIn was like for covering personnel moves is a really big resource too. Catherine, you have anything to add on where people should think about the ABCs of social media if you're a journalist?
I definitely agree with Kat. I was actually just jotting down a note to say, add stuff to a Twitter thread that you didn't necessarily publish. I would also add to, for people who do investigative journalism, finance or otherwise, what I've found very useful and that garners high engagement is methodology. Like a thread to say, this is how we built this graphic and this is how we looked at the data. And people love that sort of thing. They get like a little bit of a behind the scenes look at how you actually put together a huge investigation. So that's it's really useful. But in terms of finding stories, I think, a journalist just starting out definitely needs a Twitter handle that, as Kat said, is where the journalists still are. But one platform that we haven't mentioned yet that we're also putting a lot of effort into that I think is very useful when it comes to finding stories is YouTube. We've been doing a ton on shorts, and YouTube itself is prioritizing shorts, and they're also like no matter what platform you're talking about, you are fighting an algorithm that can change on a dime. So just to keep that in mind. But right now we're really focusing on shorts, and partly because YouTube is also, but it is such a powerful search engine. And there's like the educational and news side that not everyone really thinks about when they think about YouTube. So I highly recommend using YouTube to mine out stories and see what other people are doing. And journalists too are publishing big investigations there. And stuff can go viral really, really quickly.
That's
Okay.
a great point by Catherine. I mean, sound is really important to our work as a radio station. And I was doing a story about a healthcare transaction involving a big publicly held out-of-state company that manages rehab centers for people who have injuries. And they had a founder who's a very scurrilous character who had wound up in prison. And I was able to find a YouTube video of him being excoriated in Congress. So, that was of particular value for a radio journalist like me to be able to have that audio. So exactly right.
Yeah. So Zoe, what are you looking at for any Twitter alternative? Oh, we talked about Twitter alternatives, some ABCs. I mean, for people getting started.
I honestly, going back to Ian's point about headlines, because we put headlines on everything now. It goes on all of our artwork. We always have freeze frames, like thumbnail images for our videos now. Those have headlines. And going back to Catherine's point about algorithms, I think what's helpful is, like, let's say you just picked LinkedIn. Well, a company that does really well on LinkedIn, and I'm a bit envious, is The Economist. I think a lot of their artwork and the way they share magazine covers, the way they share their videos is great. Something that we found that works for Barron's is kind of what I call it directional headlines. So being like, buy this stock, shares can go up and the company is still cheap, or saying like these two stocks could get dropped from the S&P 500. That stuff seems to work for us. And it also works on TikTok. The other thing too is, like, if you plan to upload any sort of multimedia content, like a video or an interview, what's really big is just making sure you have your own captions, because a lot of people, myself included, I don't watch videos with the audio on. I often just watch the captions. And especially if you're in an office and you have people next to you, even when we're at work, we have the poor man Zoom, Google Meet, and I have captions on too, just to make sure I didn't miss something. And also that way, if you're uploading a video, sometimes like TikTok will auto-generate and it'll misspell people's names or make grammatical errors. This way everything is up to our standards, and also just shows like we are on top of our product and are like proud of it and work into it.
Okay, I just want to remind anybody who's watching it to please ask a question. We're starting to get towards the end of the presentation. I just want to kind of throw it out there, and just social media is really important, and it's incredible how much it's changed, and it's incredible how much the news business has changed, and it continues to change. Does anybody want to kind of speculate on where things are going to be in 5 or 10 years? I don't know. I mean, I hope the journalism brands that we all work for still have value, and the thing about social media, the other thing that strikes me about social media is it's kind of the future. It's like where all the young people are. So that's the future of our business, really, are the people that are already on social media now. So that's the future that's our future audience. So we have to try to engage them and learn from them. So I don't know. Those are some thoughts. Yeah. Where do we? If I'm going to start, I'll start. I'm going to speculate. I'm going to say that hey, social media is going to be bigger than ever. We might even be doing more videos, and of course, we don't even know what how AI is going to figure into everything too. So that's the other new layer that with me, technology is always changing, and I just I sit back a little bit. I'm not an early adopter. I kind of just want to, see what the main, what emerges, It's like at one point there were like 500 internet companies, and then it was basically down to 5, and Google was bought everybody, So I don't know, I'm just rambling here. So why don't we start with Zoe this time? Zoe, where do you think things are headed? What do you think you're going to be doing in 5 or 10 years as a social media expert and stuff?
Oh my God, that's a tough question. But thinking about AI, I think we're going to see a lot more artificial information given to us by websites, first of all, aside from social media. And I don't know, this is just me spitballing, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a social media platform with AI, like asking you, like, what do you want to look at first? And then it'll start showing you stuff. Something to think about. That's just off the top of my head.
Oh, wait, so wait, run that by me again. The AI, you're gonna have a conversation with an AI and then,
It's like, you know, when you return stuff to a store and they
Yeah.
ask you, like, they're like, oh, do you want to speak to us before you speak to a chatbot? I could definitely see some sort of social media program being like, what do you want to look at first? Like cute cats, videos about like cooking recipes, and then it might just start showing you that only.
yeah,
So unfortunately, having to like embrace the algorithm and the AI rather than try and like fight the machines, you know?
yeah, yeah. Okay, Catherine, Ian raised his hand again. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, I agree AI is coming on strong. And, one concern for journalists is obviously deep fakes. And, there's a lot of disinformation out there, as we've said, and you just, it's something to be concerned about. But I think I see a really robust journalistic landscape here in Rhode Island. But the thing I worry about is that it's a lot more fractured than it used to be in the past. There are different news organizations which have their audiences, and there's less of the bureau-based community by community coverage that used to exist in the past. So I think there's less of a shared audience. And, for a time when the country is pretty polarized and fractured, you wonder about the effect of that.
Okay. All right, Catherine.
I agree that, I think social media, while being such a powerful tool, is also so dangerous. We are so fractured, and fragmented, and everyone, is very easy to find an echo chamber and just live there. It takes effort on the parts of consumers and journalists to open their minds, but also open their news feeds, to have more of a holistic view of things. And I think this is a problem that we haven't solved for yet. So I think that this is something that the tech companies really need to consider. And we need, as journalists, we need to help our audiences try and, with financial publishers and with news wires like Reuters, we're all viewed as kind of neutral, down the middle. But I think that it's important to hear a lot of different opinions, and we're just not kind of getting that yet. So I don't know what the answer is. It's just a very scary question. Also, in terms of what we're going to see in the future, I think we need to, publishers, in order to survive, we need to figure out how to monetize these platforms for our, just to sustain our teams, to sustain our publishing. And again, this is something that we have not really solved for. We're at Reuters, I can say we're making a little bit of money on YouTube. We're not making anything on Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and where we're actually putting a lot of effort. And of course, it's to court the younger generation and to make sure that, we're out there and brand awareness. But we're going to have to figure this out. Also, we did monetize our video output on Twitter, but with Elon's takeover, advertisers have fled the platform. So we're also kind of screwed there. So if anyone has any ideas, let me know.
All right. Kat, where do you think things are headed? What's your view on the future?
Well, I guess kind of along the same lines as Catherine. I don't know if I can really make too many predictions. But I do feel like, staying nimble on our feet is really important. And just like over my time in journalism and social media, things have already changed so many different times, from platform to platform, and even within specific platforms, like what they reward and what they look for changes all the time. So I think that, being able to be agile and to try new things and keep up with where people are going and what their behavior is, but also to, of course, remain uphold the good tenets of journalism and storytelling across the board. It's just really important. But I also agree with Catherine that, we kind of need to figure out a way to bring this back to us and either monetize it, in a variety of ways. But I think we do give away a lot for free to these platforms. And I think in a lot of ways it does bring some things back to us in terms of brand awareness or subscriptions, things like that. But I do think that going forward, I would like to see that change and for us to figure out a solution to that as just an industry. So, yeah.
Okay. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. There's a question here from Greg Miles. Does anybody have a plan B in case TikTok does get banned? Is TikTok really going to get banned? And if it does get banned, what would we do? I don't know. Zoe, you got any thoughts on that? Or
Honestly, I think right now, if TikTok got banned, people would probably just post their, thirsty edits of celebrities on Twitter, or they're going to go to YouTube Shorts. They'll find a way to recreate
YouTube Shorts, yeah.
Yeah, find a way to recreate some of those communities, or like if people are like hyper interested, like TikTok, certain like makeup products go viral on TikTok, then they're sold out at Sephora for 6 months. People will find a way to recreate that interest with other consumers online, probably on YouTube Shorts. That wouldn't surprise me. Sorry. And Steve, one thing we didn't talk about before
Sure.
is, asking about social media like 5 years from now, I have no idea where this is going to go, but something obviously like Apple's made a lot of headlines for like mixed reality and their headsets and whatnot. It wouldn't surprise me if a company was like, you can be in the shareholder meeting with us. Here's a headset. And so you can feel like you're, with Zuckerberg in the room or whatnot. That's just an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, I think a lot of people would go for that. Yeah. So here's another question. From Conway Gittins. I think it will be helpful. Catherine's smiling. Yeah, they're colleagues, they're former colleagues. I think it will be helpful to discuss the difference between TikTok and Instagram, which are more video based versus a text-based network like Twitter. So just auto pushing a story won't be enough for those platforms. I guess so. Conway's sort of asking like, what's it going to look like, TikTok versus Instagram. Catherine, you want any thoughts on that, Catherine?
Hi, Conway. Actually, they don't look very different, to be honest, because a lot of people, if you spend any time on Instagram Reels, you'll see like the TikTok logo on a lot of it, because people just make the content for one platform and then they'll, repost it to Instagram, which is actually super smart. We do that, we'll take one vertical video and post it to Reels, TikTok, Shorts, and, wherever else we possibly can. So honestly, they don't look that different. So if we did lose TikTok, which I don't see happening really, but who knows? Clubhouse was a thing like last year, right? And who even talks about Clubhouse anymore? So who knows? But I think people would kind of just naturally go to Instagram Reels. That's just my opinion. I think people aren't used to consuming shorts quite at the pace that they are with Reels yet. But that will probably also change with short order because, YouTube is really pushing that. And I think more people are going to YouTube. But yeah, I don't think they're very different, to be honest. It's just a different audience and kind of a little bit of a different vibe on TikTok. Much younger. I feel like it's, Facebook is for the olds, Instagram is for like the middles, and TikTok's for the very youngs.
Okay. All right.
So
okay.
I did once hear it described as Instagram is like a museum, like a curated museum, and TikTok is just kind of like a free for all. So I do kind of think of it a little bit of in those terms, like, yeah, Instagram's just very highly curated, and that's kind of what you expect there. And yeah, TikTok is just you could really be ready for anything. And it's much more casual and much more just, I'm gonna hop on and tell you something.